Great. Thanks, Mike. And welcome, everybody. I'm glad to have everybody here and to introduce our keynote panel for this morning. Joining me is Air Force Deputy CIO Lauren Knausenberger and Chief Software Officer Nicholas Shalon. So thanks so much for joining us. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes getting to know more about the DevSecOps initiative at the Air Force and what that means for DoD at large and other agencies. So welcome, Lauren.
All right, thank you. Great to be here. And I know that Nick is on his way. I will share he was, doing something very heroic yesterday and cut his hand. So he's typing slowly to get into the chat room. But he'll be here to join us momentarily, and we can jump right in.
All right. Well, when we talk about innovation in government, one of the first things many think about is developing software faster. Obviously, this is your forte, Nicholas's forte. The Air Force is seen as a leader here in DoD overall with the DevSecOps initiative. So, Lauren, we'll start with you. What does DevSecOps really mean for the service and the agency at large?
Sure. So, really, it means the same for the Air Force that it does for most businesses, that you finally pulled together the folks from the development side, the security engineers, the IT ops folks to work together to drive value very quickly to our warfighters. And it's been a journey because especially in the DoD, we love our process. And for a long time, that waterfall process, it really was ingrained. It was almost like a flight checklist. People are going to die if you don't sequentially go through your requirements and your design and your development and your testing and probably, some pretty serious rework and testing. And so really, as things have progressed, we have shown consistently that we can deploy code multiple times a day to the warfighter at the tactical edge at all levels of classification. And that has been huge. And I will share with you that a lot of the movement really started with Kessel Run and that first problem that a couple folks have heard about, where we used to plan our in-air refueling ops using a set of whiteboards and manual calculations. And, Eric Schmidt said something along the lines of, hey, there should be an app for that to the operational commander who was out there. And next thing we knew, we had deployed this and we're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a week in fuel. And, it's just gone from there, just picking new problems, refining processes, and really just driving velocity. And the teams have continued to learn so much through that process. And I will share that, I got really close with Kessel Run when they started running into a few roadblocks. How are we going to get buy-in from the testing community that everything that we're doing in an automated way in our CI/CD pipeline every single time we commit code? How do we show people that this really does, meet the standard that we need for the vast majority of our non-operational testing? And then also with the security approvals, just making sure that instead of having some hard gate once things are done, you've had the security engineers involved throughout. You have all of this automated scanning that's happening throughout. You have a really great design with hackers on the team who are tabletopping you and basically providing insight during the design phase. By the time you're done with that product, there shouldn't be a whole lot you have to do to get it accredited and ready to run on the network. And I will share that I think we have Nick now, and Nick, I was telling the guys that it probably took you a little while to log in because of your brave feats of heroism yesterday, in which you impaled your hand, so you're typing slowly.
But I tell people that you stabbed me with a knife. It sounds better, but yes, I'm sorry for being
wound.
But thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be able to talk with you about all the great work you've been doing. And we wouldn't be here without everything you put together for us when I started. So I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done for the department.
Well, thanks, Nick. And back at you, I was just sharing a little bit about kind of the journey and kind of where we got started. And Nick, you've been so incredible at driving this at scale, which is, really the hard part. Once you have a couple of great successes, how do you kind of knock that out of the park for the whole enterprise? So I'd love to hand it over to you to, pick up the story.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nick.
no, absolutely. So I guess, just to quickly provide a little bit of insight, I think obviously I agree that it's hard to scale, but it's very hard to get started. I would actually argue it's harder to get the ball rolling than pushing it down the hill and get a little bit more momentum. So I would certainly not say that it is easier to scale than getting started. But I guess everything is hard in DoD, right? So whatever. What I know is critical, and that's why I think we are really helping teams move faster now, is by removing the impediments for them to get started and jump on the DevSecOps wagon, because we know how complex and difficult it's been for teams like Run and others to start from day one and build something that really gets us with a continuous ATO model. And I think it's very difficult, right, to reinvent the wheel and build all the basic layer that are mandated and necessary for us to be secure. And so the cloud and the platform work is foundational, particularly the cyber stack and the way we can continuously assess our cyber posture. So I guess the key for us was to build these Cloud One and Platform One services, enterprise services, so teams can focus on building their mission software, not have to reinvent the wheel and build an entire stack from scratch.
Great. Thanks, Nicholas. So, Lauren, you touched on this a little bit earlier, leadership buy-in and communicating value. That's always going to be something that's relevant, especially for such a huge initiative like DevSecOps at DoD. So, how has DevSecOps been communicated during these past few years, and how do you really get that value communicated across the agency?
Well, I will share that it started out as kind of, DevSecOps, that's that buzzword that is kind of run by those innovators over there that are kind of wearing hoodies and they're a little different. And, I guess as long as they stay over there, it's okay. The typical like organizational dynamic in the DoD. And I think what made it serious was the business case as it came out. And one of the most powerful early metrics was kind of looking at, okay, if we continue on the path that we're going for that in-air refueling project that I mentioned, then it's going to take us 5 years to start with the savings that we think we can get. And within that first 6 months or so, they were saving about $250,000 a week on fuel. By the end of the first year, it was starting to be closer to $500 million also in maintenance and platform costs, because they didn't have to have, the in-air gas stations, so to speak, kind of just hanging out in theater waiting for folks to come up. They could plan it very, very tightly with fewer KC-135s. And so, you start to say, well, what happens if I wait 5 years before I can start doing that savings versus today? So you start calculating your cost of delay. And when people started to see in the corporate structure how much faster we could be driving value and savings, and how much solving problems in a modern way and speeding this capability of the warfighter, it wasn't just some innovation thing happening over there. It was a real mission need that was saving very, very noticeable amounts of money and was worth the investment. And from there to, the actual airmen at the tactical edge, the operational commanders at that point, CENTCOM, was huge in the global war on terror, and kind of the number one priority strategy-wise. And so when you have combatant commanders saying, DevSecOps is critical to my mission, and you have the corporate structure saying, oh my goodness, you just showed me $500 million a year in platform costs, the rest of the story kind of writes itself.
Fantastic. And Nicholas, I know you were brought in to kind of spearhead all of these efforts, and we've seen how that has boomed over the past couple of years. So from your point of view, can you talk through some of the challenges that you had in the organization, or even some of the cultural challenges that Lauren touched upon? What were some of those things like for you?
Yeah, well, I think the main issue we're facing is the size and scale of the department, right? Both what we're trying to do is not just for the Air Force, it's DoD wide, and obviously you have a lot of silos, and unfortunately there's a lot of egos, including mine, that we have to deal with, and that's obviously not always easy to find the right approach. And one size fits all obviously is never a good idea. So we try to build Platform One as a flexible modular capability that teams can use in different ways. And I think that was foundational to the success of the adoption of Platform One and why we're able to move so fast. But also, I think people start to realize that the only way for us to get there is by collaborating and being stronger, faster, and better together as a team because of the lack of talent already that we're facing and the difficulty of bringing additional talent inside the government. So I think we don't have a choice but to do that and work together and stop reinventing the wheel. And I think the whole other aspect to the issue of scale is that we have teams that got started early before I got here, and they were doing great work. And now, we are building enterprise services that they would benefit from, but at the same time, they don't want to slow down, right? So I always think of that visual that we see on social media where you see two people pushing a car with square wheels, and someone shows up with a round wheel and say, hey, I can replace your wheels and you can move faster. But they're like, no, we're too busy. We're pushing the car, right? So I think it's a little bit of the same analogy. Sometimes, unfortunately, people are so focused on delivery and day to day, and they have tight deadlines, and the leadership needs to take a step back and understand, yes, maybe we have to slip, for 2 months now, but we're going to save 10 years down the road. It's that trade-off of short-term investment in enterprise capability adoption that will pay off, tenfold down the road, but might have some short-term impact on the delivery of existing capabilities. But I think it's a matter of understanding that return on investment, right? And so I think the fact that we built Platform One and made Platform One the first ever, DevSecOps managed service approved by DoD CIO, I think that alone and working tightly with DoD CIO and ANS to ensure that we're not just building something for the Air Force and that we are welcoming everybody and we have not Navy, Army customers, Cyber Command and NSA and others using pieces of Platform One. That I think has been the prime enabler to remove some of these impediments.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Nick. And so going back to a little bit of the cultural aspect of things, Lauren, how have you seen this really working to break down silos at the DoD? You said earlier DoD is such a monolith and it can be challenging to navigate. But it seems like the DevSecOps initiative and the projects that came out of it really helped, break that down.
Yes, absolutely. And, once you have, for instance, presidential candidates in the last primary touting some of the successes from our DevSecOps teams, you're doing something right. And really, all of these programs are providing a lot of value and driving things forward. So, at this point, culturally, there's definitely a lot of kind of success and expectation there. But there's still a lot of work to do, and Nick has helped in a lot of ways with this. There's still a little bit of, I want to build my own thing. And after Kessel Run was celebrated so much, and Platform One and Space Camp were celebrated so much as these awesome innovators who built their own platform and they're developing code and they're pushing out to the warfighter. We've had teams come after that, hey, we want to be cool too. We want to do this too. And some of the folks felt like, well, but if I'm not going to be as cool if I don't build my own platform too. And so those guys had to start from scratch. They had to build their own cloud and then build their own platform and their own pipeline. And they had to, train their whole workforce from scratch. So if I really want to, earn the badge, I have to do it too. And so we're trying to help people to get a little bit away from that mentality and just be able to say, hey, my focus is on delivering capability to the warfighter. I don't want to have to build my own cloud and my own platform and my own pipeline. I don't even necessarily want to have to come up with my own training curriculum to get people up to speed. I want to use the things that are there, because if I use the things that are there, then, I can roll up to platform one and I can have people pushing code to production in a couple of weeks. I don't need to be going through this rigmarole just to, I guess to show everyone how creative and smart I am at building my own thing. And, and now people are like, from the military, the Navy and the Marine Corps and the Army, they're kind of showing how smart they are by saying, hey, y'all, look what Baby Yoda is doing over here in the Air Force. We're just going to roll up and kind of take it, and we're going to start deploying code. And so so kind of the what do we celebrate and who's just like really nailing it. When you can come in and work smart like that, that is being celebrated much more than it did in the past. And that's a really huge cultural movement that we've had as well.
Fantastic.
And I may add a little bit to that, but because I think you're spot on there, right? I think people ideally will understand that we are here to build better experiences and warfighter capabilities, not to build platform or software factories that can then be used to do so, right? So I think hopefully people will realize that the future will be about creating work of microservices and containers that will be able to be used to do true warfighting capabilities and not just the basic foundational layers of commodity of platforms. That is not a win for the warfighter. No one cares that we have Kubernetes running. They care that we can instantiate mission capabilities at the pace of relevance, and they care that we can be modular and flexible to try new things, bring new capabilities to life in a matter of hours without having to reinvent the wheel. I always go back to the SpaceX model that has only 200 people, developers, right, to build the 11 platforms of SpaceX, where we have 4,000 just for F-35 alone. That's because we don't share and enable sharing code across teams. And we rebuild everything as a monolithic stack from scratch. That has to stop, because we don't have the luxury of wasting time anymore. And we need to be able to have teams focus on the delta of what needs to be improved. And that's why, the platforms at SpaceX have a massive code reuse, 80+% can be reused. And the focus of the development teams is the 20% that makes them different. That we need to get at the same state, and that's where people should really get the real good press releases and not so much building platforms anymore.
Absolutely.
I want to expand on that a little bit, because I know open source is a huge thing for the platform one, and sharing it across DoD and of course outside of DoD as well. What does that look like as far as expanding it to other agencies who might want to get a piece of pie?
I think it's for me, right?
Go for it, Nick.
All right. Well, we already have 12 agencies looking at already using a lot of the platform one work. That's why we open sourced it, and not only agencies but also friendly countries as well. So that's exciting to see. We have DHS, VA, DOJ, DOI, IRS, and many teams looking at what we're doing, and we're using containers, we're using code on Repo One. And more importantly, we have also the Defense Industrial Base that has access to our source code to instantiate Platform One on their premises, to do hardware testing, to build their software following the same capability and model, and contributing back, in effect, making some of these primes and subs that used to be mostly work-for-hire services company, a product company, because they can now ship software to Iron Bank and Platform One. And so that enables that the sharing and the Lego block capability of deployment of software. So I think it's pretty exciting to see. I think it's the reason also why we are more successful at scaling is because of that openness to the world. So people can see the code, see what we're doing, and contribute back, and have a two-way street between these teams and us.
And I'm pretty excited to see the Navy Black Pearl team come into Platform One, because they're doing some really great work. And I also love that, we started out with space names, Kessel Run, Space Camp. They're going nautical with Pirates of the Caribbean. You got the Black Pearl in there. So everyone's keeping on brand.
Everyone wants to work out of a Millennium Falcon, Lauren. So I am going to pull just an audience question really quick. This one is short and sweet. They asked, how is the UX standardized or screened for effectiveness? Maybe that's a Nicholas question.
I can take that if you want. I don't think it is, unfortunately, yet. But we have Lauren has a great chief UX officer who has been leading a lot of the work in UX, and user experience and design has been a focus of Colt, that is our chief UX officer, which is interesting. We have all these new first chiefs, chief UX officer. We have a chief modeling and simulation officer at the Air Force that just started, a great chief architect with Preston Dunlap as well. So we have a lot of great people focused on improving a lot of these gaps. I think Colt is working this on the UI UX standpoint, but we also have to be careful, right? It's easy maybe to centralize design when it comes to business systems. I think it's going to be a lot more difficult when it comes to the weapons. And quite honestly, while I love business systems, the real mission stuff that we do is on the weapon side. So it makes it a little bit harder, right? So I don't want to oversell the ability to do that, but I don't think it's an easy thing to achieve because of the different kind of systems. And, if you compare a space system or a jet and a bomber and, some type of missile, obviously that's a very different kind of UI.
Yeah, I'll add that we do have a pretty robust and gaining more robustness community of practice around design and UX UI in general, led by Colt Woodall. And with regard to individual products, we're asking users pretty regularly about the usability. They are working hand in hand with with the designers and developers that are producing the products that they're using, and we're starting to instrument more of our systems as well to track the performance side of things, so that in addition to being intuitive and working for the mission, we want it to also be fast and to work at the speed of the mission. So a number of things ongoing there.
Great. And this is another audience question. I might throw that to Lauren, since I know you were heavily involved in the continuous ATO with all of this. Is there somewhere we can see the Air Force's process for continuous ATOs so we can adopt a similar process?
Sure. So we do have some playbooks documented from the early days of continuous ATO. I will say that, Nick and his team have done some incredible work to make it even easier. So in the Air Force, it could be as simple as use Platform One, go through their onboarding, and pretty much do a little bit of an enablement check at the end, and you can push code and use the continuous ATO. In the earlier days, and for folks that aren't using Platform One, you have to get all of your stuff accredited. Your platform, your CI/CD pipeline, all of your environments that you're working in, checking your endpoints, your Wi-Fi, all the traditional security stuff. But then on top of that, you're auditing the team to make sure that they have established processes, they know how to use them, that people can't circumvent the pipeline to just push code because they felt like it. That you have regular testing. Sometimes it's pen testing, sometimes it's chaos engineers who are taking a look at some of the applications and giving real-time feedback on the other end for how the developers can do better, and also having peer reviews. That's been another thing, is that if you want to have a continuous CTO, you're joining a community of developers, and you have to contribute to that community by being reviewed, and also reviewing others, and contributing. So, and Nick just posted in the chat window where the latest Cato documentation is. Nick, do you want to expand on that as well?
Yeah, sure. Quickly, we've been working, piggybacking on the work that Lauren and Casaron has done for what, 3 years, 2 years? I don't know, 3 years. And took it to DoD, CIO, and DISA and Cyber Command, and created this new guidance that's coming out now. Literally 2 weeks ago, we briefed it to the DoD, and we're getting a lot of great feedback. So if people want to check it out, it's on the software that they have, that mail website. If you go under DSOP/documents, you're going to find a CATO video where we have the brief and the slide deck that explain the step-by-step guide. So with the process, how we assess gates, how we assess the platform, and the cyber runtime necessary to make sure that we have zero trust and behavioral detection, and how we make sure that the gates are met with thresholds that the authorizing official can approve. And then, like Lauren said, the team has to go through that onboarding training to make sure they understand the trust that's given to them to some degree. And then you have a continuous ATO. So we have that great briefing on the website.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time, but thank you so much, Lauren and Nicholas, for diving into a little bit more about the DevSecOps initiative at the Air Force. It's really fascinating work, and I've personally been following it. Of course, our writers have also been following it. And Nicholas, welcome back. It's great to have you for our event again. So
thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I will pass it.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. I will pass it off now to the next panel, which is moderated by my colleague, Mark Ranema. That will be on infrastructure as code. So Mark, off to you.